Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on this channel. Over the past few videos in this series, we have created this landscape and imported it from Gaia into Unreal Engine, and we've also created a landscape material and put some basic layers on it. But as you can see, the functionality for these layers is just UVs. As you can tell with the mountains here, my slope main UVs are just set to 1. So if I put this as like 25 or something, you'll see that it's changing. So if I put 50, you'll see the UVs are changing, which is all fine. But that's the only functionality we have. So I've decided I'm going to do a video on creating a master layer, if you like, which means we could just create the logic, sort all the defaults out and organize it so this is a bit more organized in your instance, and we could just duplicate it as many times as we want. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my content drawer, I'm going to right click, create a new folder and call this layer master. Right, so and press enter. And we're going to come into our layer master. Thinking ahead, what we're going to need a new folder in here as well, and just call it functions. So, because this is where we're going to store our functions, and in here we are just going to create some new material functions. So material function, I'm going to call this KM layer master logic, like so. And we can simply get this and just left control and D and duplicate this. I'm going to press right on the arrows and just change the logic part. I'm just going to get rid of the logic part and keep that as master. What I'm going to do, I'm going to open the master function. This is where all our parameters will go in here. So I'm just going to quickly save it. I don't know why I've just saved it. I'm going to get the master logic and just throw it in here, hit apply and save, and then I'm going to come down to my logic side of things, and in here is where I want to build all the logic for our master layer. So I'm going to start with a set material attributes node. So if you drag off the results, I'm going to change that name to material. If we drag off the results and just type set mat, you'll get this set material attributes node. When we keep in mind what textures are imported from Quixel Bridge, we do know that we are going to need a base color, roughness, normal and all this good stuff. So how I'm going to approach this, if you come to the left here, the details panel, you can hit the little plus add element icon, and then we'll get a base color in there and you'll see the impin comes in. We'll press it again, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to have my normal here. I'm going to press it again, and this is going to be our ambient occlusion, and then this will be our roughness, and this will be our height, but we'll use world position offset, like so. So I've got that. Keeping in mind with this master layer, I do want to have distant tiling available, so we'll create some functions for that. First things first, I'm going to create a new function in our newly created functions folder. I'll come in here, I'm going to right click, go to materials, material function. I'm going to call this KM, my naming convention, sample blend, like so. And what this is going to do, it's just going to blend two texture samples together to give us our near and far tiling. So we're just going to jump in here and do that real quick. If we hold T on the keyboard, get a texture sample, do another one. We've got two texture samples, we're going to highlight them both and change them from texture asset to shared wrap here in the details panel. Make this a little bit bigger. Like that, because you will get problems down the line with this. And to blend these together, we're just going to use a simple lerp node. So if you hold L on the keyboard and left click, you'll get a lerp, or you can right click and type lin, and you'll see the linear interpolate. It's the same thing. So from the RGB here, we're going to go into A, the RGB on the bottom sample, it's going to go into B. We're going to drag off our alpha and just let loose to type input, and we'll get a function input. We can leave it as a scalar parameter. And I'm going to call this blend slash mask. Alright, so. And this means we can put a mask in here. It just signifies that we're blending because we're using a lerp. Just going to drag this to the out pin, like so. And you'll now notice we are getting errors. That is simply because we haven't given this a preview. So simply click on the top texture sample, hold left control and D, duplicate this. We're going to right click it and convert to texture object. Alright, so I'm going to put something here in the details panel on the left here. I'm going to just type it in. I've got textures already. Just put default. I've got a default albedo texture. I'm going to drag off this texture in pin of the texture sample like this. Just going to type input. When you drag off the in pin of a certain node, if you like, in materials, it'll 9 times out of 10 give you the correct input type that you need for that function input, which is quite handy. So for this, I'm just going to call it texture input. Right, so that's simple. Then we're going to drag that into there, and then we'll put this one into there. And this is now basically displaying our texture in both of these. You'll notice this is black and that's white. If I just click this little arrow at the top right of the texture sample, it closes it and then open it, it should display. There you go. So from here we're going to drag off the UVs. Just type input. This will be a scalar parameter. A lot of people will say get a vector 2 with your function, but it's not. You don't need to with the way we're going to do it. In here we're going to put UVs near, or is this far, this one? We'll just leave it like that. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to get rid of the near. I'm going to put far, like so. I'm going to file it into the UVs. Our landscape size is 4033. If you're not sure your landscape size, just come to your 3D viewport, click on the landscape, and in the information section in the details panel, you'll see at the bottom overall resolution is 4033. So I'm going to right click in here and get landscape. We want the layer chords, and we're just going to do in the mapping scale within the landscape chords node 4033. Right, so I'm just going to drag these into the preview inputs of our UV inputs, if you like, and we're just going to highlight them both and just click use preview as default. And what this essentially does is it sets itself back to these coordinates of this landscape node if there's no input, but that'll be very rare that happens. So yeah, we're going to give these a bit of an order now. So on our texture input function, we're going to leave it at 0, and then our near, we're going to set the priority here on the left to 1, and the far is going to have a priority of 2, and the mask is going to have a priority of 3. We're going to hit apply and save and cross that off. That is our sample blend. We could easily drag that in here now, like so. Now we've got 3 because we've got our albedo, normal, and our ORD, which is our ambient occlusion, roughness, and world position offset, or height if you like. Like so. And how should we do this now? What I am going to do as well in this function, we're going to create a new function. We're going to want our tiling. So material function, KM for my naming convention. master UVs like that. We're going to come in our master UVs, change result to UVs, UVs. How do we do this? Near. We're going to duplicate that output. I'm going to change the near for far. I think I'll actually put the mask in here as well for our distant mask. So we're going to duplicate another output, and we're going to get rid of that. Put distance mask. Right, so our near is 0 on the set priority. Our set priority for the far is 1, and our distant mask is 3. Let's just have a look here. Near, far, and blend. Yep, that's correct. Okay, so I'm going to come into our sample, just copy this. I'm going to come to our master UVs and put our landscape layer cards in here. Still got the 4033. You need this kind of thing to match up all the time. I'm just trying to think ahead now of how I want to set the logic up of this near and far tiling. I think we'll use a multiply node. So drag that in there, some outputs. We'll drag off our landscape layer coordinates into each A slot of our multiplies. So just going to organise this up a little bit. So we're going to drag off this and get an input function. We're going to call this UV's near. We'll just copy our output. Scalar parameter. Yeah, leave it as a scalar parameter. Because it's a vector 2, but I want to use it as a scalar parameter because there's landscape layer cards. We're going to append it. So I'm going to right click and type append. And what this is going to do is going to make it a vector 2, then output it as a vector 1. So it's a vector 1 now, then it's making it a vector 2, then putting it back to a vector 1. But that also sets the range from -1 to 0, I think. Yeah, it does. So we're going to drag off the append node as well and put 1 and get the 1 minus node and put it in the B slot there. Like so. Okay, we're going to duplicate this. We'll put that down here. We'll change, we'll just input that first into B. I'm going to change this to far on the input name. I think I'm going to leave it like that. Yes, I will. Let's make it a bit more neater together, like so. There we go. I mean, for equality, if you like, we can do that. I do like a neater workspace, me guys. If you've been watching my channel from the start and subscribed, which you should be, 52% of my viewers on this channel are not subscribed, which is no good, guys. So get subscribed. We've got to comment this and put UV tiling. Right, so I'm going to change the font to 25 and change the colour to some random blue colour like this. I'm going to create the mask as well. I'm just trying to think how we're going to do this mask. There's various ways to do a distant mask. I'm just trying to think of the best way. I've done it before on this channel, well that's more of a basic way, but we're going to get the pixel pixel depth node, which is this one. You just right click and type pix. You'll see there's a pixel normal world space and pixel depth. Let's get the pixel depth node. What I need to do now is subtract, is it? Subtract. We need to subtract this away from our length. Yeah, so if we get an input function, again, we'll leave this at a scalar parameter, and we're going to call this distance. What should we call this? Distance length. Wrong way. Length. Right, so the problem is I'm subtracting my distance length from the pixels, which is fine, but I also need a distance transition. I'm going to duplicate our distance scalar parameter input, if you like, and call this transition. Right, so we need to divide this. So we'll hold D on the keyboard, you get you left clicking, it'll give you a divide node, or you could always right click and type divide. So we're going to divide this away, and we're going to divide our transition away from our length as well as subtracting. That's fine. And we're simply going to divide these again, like so. I think so. We'd subtract, then we'd divide and dividing again. Now, because of this pixel depth node, we have massive numbers, so to combat that, we'll just clamp it. Like so. So now, if I start previewing this, right there. I'm going to hold 1 on the keyboard and get 2 parameters. I'm just going to put these into here. I'm going to give this a default of 4. There you go. And we need to find the right value for this. Let's just find the right value. Right, it's starting going dark around the edges now. Oh, there you go, I've skipped it. There you go. So around 100 seems to be right. And what we're doing there, so basically with this and our UVs, the black is going to be our far, and the whites are going to be our far, and the black is going to be our near. So I'm going to leave that at default of 100. And this means if nothing is plugged into it, we have the right values. Let's see what the transition's like. Let's increase this to 5. The transition is how thick this fading is. Put 1. That's quite a bit. 0.1. That's a hell of a lot now. So we're going to put 10. That should be really sharp. There you go. We're going to leave this at a 7 as a default. Well, let's put 3, but we can leave it at 3 as a default. I'm going to click on these. I'm going to use preview value as defaults. But as you can see, we need to invert this. So if we get the 1 minus node again, duplicate it, fire this in there. We're going to just set preview node. There you go. So now our blacks are our far, and our whites are our near, which is perfect. Maybe I could increase this transition now. So this is going to need a large number. 1000. No, just got rid of it. 150. 5. Oh, it's completely gone. So 80. Yeah, that'll do. But yeah, that's our distant mask setup. So I'm going to highlight more common distance. Oh, I spelled that right. Mask. Right, so we're going to set the font as 25 and the colour is just a random colour. I want to order these up now, these inputs. The way I'm just going to do from the top to bottom. So this will be set priority 1. Distance length can be 2 as set priority, and the transition can be 3. I'm going to hit apply and save. There we go. And we can simply drag this master UVs into here. Right, so, and now we're pretty much set up. What I want to do now is let's get some functionality going. So on here, I'm just at the top one here, I'm just going to right click and promote to parameter. I'm going to get rid of that 2D thing on the end. At this point, let me think. No, we're not going to do this parameter right now. We're just going to leave this as an input. So if I open this up again, I'm going to highlight that, left control, let's highlight these. I'm doing it this way for ease of use, if you like. Just highlight these into here. And we're going to fire that into there. That is going to go there. Do this. Like so. I think we'll get them defaults as well from here. Left control and C for copy. Everyone should know that by now. Just going to drag these in here because these need a preview. Like this. There we go. I'm just going to simply fire these into each of these inputs. The reason I'm doing it this way is because in our master function, which is here, we could set all our parameters in there, which will make it much easier in the future to work with. Okay, so I'm just going to drag off here, just type input. I'm going to need a function input. It'll be a texture 2D. And for this, I'm going to change the name to albedo. I'm good if I spell it right. Albedo texture. Like so. And we're just going to duplicate this twice. We'll get rid of that _1 on the end. And we'll just get rid of this and put normal. Like so. Drag that in there. And this could be our ORD. This is where our stacked texture, what you import from Quixel Bridge, will go. Okay, so that is our inputs there. In this video, it's just going to be the logic side of this shader. In the next video, we'll sort all the parameters out and apply them to the landscape. I just don't want it to be massive. Okay, so massively long. My apologies. Oh, I need that. Instead of coming in here and applying this like this and doing it to every single inpin, we're going to use what's called the Reroute declaration node. So on the outpin of this function, just drag off and type RER. You'll see add named Reroute declaration node. We highlight that. Call this UV near. Do the same with the far. Right, so, okay, now we've got that set up. I'm going to highlight all these, comment it, and put UV's master. Change the font size to 25. You can change this font size in the editor preferences if you want. But I never really do that. Okay, so how we use these now is we simply right click, come to named reroutes, and just bring in our nodes that we need. So, what we need first is our near. So, do that. Our far. And our distant mask. Okay, so we've got that set up. There we go. So this is going to be our albedo. I'll leave it like that for now because we need to make it a bit larger when we start doing all the work on it. And what I'm simply going to do is highlight these and just duplicate them down here, like so. Okay, now this is set up how we want it. What I need to do now is add some functionality in here. so we can have some controls over our brightness and contrast and all that. I'm going to start with the ORD, which is our ambient occlusion, roughness and world position offset. As you can see, there's only one out pin. To solve this, we just need to get the break out of float 3 component. This is an Unreal Engine function. And we simply drag out of here into ambient occlusion, and we drag into the roughness, and we do the world position offset. I'm going to drop this down like so. We'll use that in a bit. So the roughness, what we're going to do is just use a lerp here, so we hold L on the keyboard like so, and we'll drag off the G, which is our roughness, put it into the alpha like so. We'll drag off the A input and type input function, and we'll call this layer roughness max. I think A is the max, like so. And we're going to duplicate that, and this can be our minimum. Just change it to minimum like so, and put that in the B. We'll set them both to preview, and then we'll use a constant, and we'll just set this to 1. To get the constant, you just hold 1 on your keyboard and left click. So with them both being set to 1, that just means it's permanently rough all the time, which is what we're looking for. We'll do that, and then we want ambient occlusion control. For this, we could just simply use a multiply. The multiply node. Right, so I'm going to change it from the A to the, no, keep it on A. And we'll just drag off here, get an input function. Like so, and we'll change this to layer amount. So we'll preview this as well. We'll get a constant node, and we'll just set, I'm going to set this to 0.2 and put that into the preview slot there. Do this, get a bit level, double click on that and get a line here. Do this, just make it a little bit more neater so it's readable by anyone who comes in. Like so. The normals are very easy. If we just drag off the sample blend, just type flatten, get our flatten normal node function, plug that straight into our normal, like so. For this, we're going to get an input function. We'll call this layer normal amount. Press enter. I'm not going to set a default for this, but if you've noticed, we're using a flat and normal node, and when we want to add normal, the amount of normal to our texture, we don't want to flatten it, we want to increase it. So we'll get our 1 minus node. 1 minus node just inverts what parameters we're setting, so it's increasing the normal instead of flattening it. Okay, so that's that done. And here comes the base. I'm going to set this colour 25 on the font. I'm just going to give it a blue, I think. So blue for normal. Okay, here comes the albedo part. I'm going to drag off here and get a desaturation node. So put this up here. We'll drag off here and get an input function. And this can be called layer saturation. Because I want to saturate, I don't want to desaturate. We're going to use our famous 1 minus node again. Like I say, it just inverts. Drag this out a bit. So. And there we go, that's that. From here I want to get a multiply node, and this can be our brightness. We'll drag off here, input function. We'll call this layer brightness. So, we'll fire that in there. Now after this we could also, if you want to, if you choose to, you can drag another multiply node off. And we'll get an input function. I'm going to call this layer color tint. Yeah, but we're going to change it from a scalar parameter to a vector 3. We'll just leave that like that for now. And we want to add some contrast. So if we get a contrast node, let's just have a look in here quick. No, we're not going to use that. That's more, it's more blending that because it's got the lerp in it. So we're just going to drag off, type power. Yeah, power node, drag off the exponent input. So we'll get an input function. And we'll call this layer contrast. So, and we can simply drag that into our base color. We'll change this up, we'll get a font of 25, and just give it an arbitrary pink color. Like so. Okay, so that is the logic set up. And now what I want to do, if I apply and save this, open our master, you'll see now our function has all the inputs we need. We'll drag off there, we'll change this name to material. What I do want to give here is another couple of outputs, so 1 and 2. And this one we're going to call normal. We'll give it a priority of 1, and this we're going to call height. We'll give it a priority of 2, and then our normal, what we want to do is drag off this pin. Don't drag off the flattened normal, be a normal output, because this is you don't want to use the normal after changes have been made, if you understand what I mean. But I'm just going to drag this in here like so. And this can be our height. So we'll drag that into there, just follow that through. So there you go. What I want to do now is create some separators. So if I do input function, what these are going to do is just going to separate our function on the outside. So for this I'm just going to do that and put textures and do that like so. We'll duplicate this, change the textures to params. Let's get rid of that in the end. I'm going to duplicate this again and change this to UVs. This off the end like so. Okay, so now our textures, right there. It's going to bug me unless I change it now. Capital T. For our textures, which is just these 3 inputs, I'm just going to leave it 0, and then for here I can just put 1 on the set priority, 2 on the set priority, and 3 on the set priority of that one. Just going to quickly change these. layer. Yeah, you'll see later or in the next video why I'm putting layer down on our functions. Layer. So layer. So and then layer. And there. Okay, if we've got anything, change these as well. Layer. I know it's a bit monotonous this, but it has to be done. But the great thing about it is you only have to do it the once for each layer. And layer. Okay. Right, let's set the priorities. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. And our next is the parameters, which are all these. I'm going to put this at 100 on the set priority. So every one of these, if I set like this, which I'm going to do, which is going to be 101, and this one's going to be 102. Okay, and for the UVs I'm going to set this to 150, and then this can be 151, 152, 153, and 154. Okay, if we hit apply now and save it, you'll see it puts us back out here, and you'll see now we've got our textures here, our parameters and our UVs. I'm just going to come in here and get this normal and get this height, left control and C, and copy that. I'm just going to paste them in here like so. Do this. This is going to be our normal, and this will be our height. So, okay guys, yeah, I think I'll leave it here for now. As it stands right now, we have set up our logic. This is all the logic we're gonna got errors here. Layer, normal, texture. Haha. The reason this is because it needs a preview. What I mean by that is if we just simply get a texture object here like so, let's get this texture object, nothing has to be in it really, just drag this into the preview of each of these inputs for the textures like so, and that gets rid of them errors like there. You don't have to put anything in here, we'll change it on the outside. We'll just hit apply and save. And that is, like I say, our logic all set up for our master layer. And here is our actual function on the outside. What we're going to do in the next video is assign all these parameters to this function, and then we shall test it on our landscape, which is here. And then once we're happy with our default parameters on this function, we will then duplicate the layer and rename everything, but I will show all that in the next video. But by the end of the next video we'll have multiple layers on our landscape with multiple textures and all this good stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and now you know how to create a master layer. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Thank you.